Record.
Recording.
Go. Boom. All right. So y'all should be able to see my screen. Anybody give me a heads up, thumbs up that you can see it? Good. MLS screen. Awesome. So real quick, I'm going to show you some basic ways just to pull stats from the MLS. Not going to get too deep into that, but I'll show you where they're at and some things that most people like to look at. And then I'm going to show you how to pull stats from the MLS and go to an Excel and work with the data there. Um, If you come over to menu and you come down to the left, there's a section that talks about statistics. One that some agents like to look at is your production. If you hit this one that says my production, what it'll do is it'll look at your stats year over year, meaning from this year over last year or whatever date you select. So obviously I don't have anything because I don't produce, but if I go back to 23, you can see where I was at year to date from 23 to 22 to 23. I was down in 23, it looks like. But it gives you your stats at a snapshot with some cool graphs. So this this is pulled specifically just for you and just for your data. Again, that's menu and that's my production. Some of this stuff we're going to go through pretty quick just because it's not. I don't want to dive too deep into that. I want to get into more Excel today. I know some folks have asked for Excel data and training, so I want to try to give that to you a little bit today. Another place where a lot of folks get a lot of stats from is a section called inventory and production. So check on menu and then come down to stats and go to inventory and production. And when you click on that, there are a ton of reports in here that you can run. Some common ones are terms of sale. If you wonder where you get to find out, like, is it a VA loan? Is it a cash deal? Something like that. If you come in and run this terms of sale report, there's filters that you can set to where you can set just Onslow County or Jacksonville or Hampstead or Wilmington. It'll show you how many of those transactions were conventional, were cash, were VA. That's where you pull that report from. Ranking report is what a lot of folks like to pull. This pulls the ranking report for where agents stand, meaning in the whole MLS or in your board. You simply come down, you change association, and I'm going to go Jacksonville Board of Realtors. I'll hit the beginning date for January of this year, and then that's the end date. Again, those are all filters. You don't have to get into the weeds for all that. You can hit Onslow County if you want. I just did Jacksonville Board of Realtors or whatever I can do by association. I can do by county. You just keep rank members. When I pull the office stats, this is where I would pull rank offices. You probably won't see rank members in office. That's user level. So once I hit rank members, then it comes up where I could do by number, which is how many transactions were sold. I could do by dollar volume. Current active, new, pending, we're going to do sold. This asks for if I want to look for just for listing members, just for selling members. If I want to look for listing and selling, like they're dual, they were both sides, or I want to just look for listing or selling, which means they could have had either side or both. I'm going to check that one. I calculate numbers. This is on the side. It's going to calculate the numbers and volume using sides. And then this is how many I want to display. I usually put 100 on there. Just gives me the top 100. You can put 1,000. It'll list everybody. And then when you click next, it's going to generate the report. And this tells us, so they call it the top-down report, and it ranks where agents are at. Individual agents, not offices. So that's where people pull their ranking report as far as where you stand in the MLS in JBOR or whatever statistics that you've pulled as far as filters you've set, and it shows where you rank at within the MLS. Has how many sides you've sold, what the volume is, what your average price is. That's a total percentage of sales, meaning total number versus all the homes sold in that filtered area. And that's the percentage of volume you've done versus the total volume of sales for that specific filtered area. I hope that makes sense. Those are some basic built-in reports within the MLS. Again, statistics and inventory production. I would tell you to go down and just play with these. You're not going to break anything. You're not going to ruin anything in the MLS. There's a lot of good, cool reports here that are just canned. I call them canned because they are reports that the MLS has set up, and the data that's going to display is based on the filters that they have set. I like to take that data and pull it out and run other statistics. Um, the way I do it is I'll do a quick search, and I just do a simple search on what data I'm looking for as far as I call it a 10,000 foot view, meaning I want to look at everything sold in Onslow County, right? And I want to be able to pull all the stats in Onslow County. There are some canned reports that I can use, but I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change the status to closed. And then I'm going to start setting my filters just as if I were to look for a house for somebody. And I'm just going to put Onslow. This isn't based off of associations. This is based off everything in the MLS that's closed in Onslow County. I'm going to put my close date, and we'll do it from the beginning of the year, 1/1/2026. And that's till today. There's been 1,200 homes closed. And that's really all I want. I just want everything that's closed since the first of the year for Onslow County. I'm not going to do subtype. I want to pull all that data. I want to see all that data. You can filter that as much as you like here. But I'm going to take that and I'm going to filter that within Excel. I hope that makes sense. In Excel, I'll be able to manipulate or filter the data that I want to see and how I want to see it. So once I have this, I'm going to come up to these three dots in the top right, and I'm going to hit export. And this is going to export all this data into a CSV file, which stands for comma separated value file. So you can just use generic text export. There are other ones you can set up like custom reports. I have custom stats that I've pulled out to be able to pull stuff, and it has certain fields that I want to see. Or you could just use the generic text export. I'm going to use this one just because it makes it easy. I know where all the fields are. And then I'll hit export. And all that's doing now is it's just going to download the file, and I'll put it and save it. And it saves it to wherever you want. Takes a minute because it's a lot of data. You can set this range to whatever. The MLS has a max of, I think it's 5,000 fields that'll let you download at once. So if you wanted to download like multiple years, you would select a group, and then you could just keep adding those to that same Excel data and run all the stats from the data compiled into one file. Again, I don't want to get that deep because I know people that don't like numbers are probably looking at me cross-eyed, and I'm just trying to keep this as
Al, if we
informative.
needed that many numbers, we would just call you.
Okay.
Nobody's going to pull that many numbers but you, honey.
I like to do comparisons, you know that. I'll do year over year and everything
I
else.
agree
know.
with Jenna. I would just call you out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So once I get that report or that CSV file, I'll open it up. It's going to open up in Excel. And the first thing I'm going to have you do when it uploads, right, when you open it, is to save it as an Excel file. Because when you get ready to change, we're going to do what's called a pivot table. And when you start doing that kind of stuff and you try to save it, it's not going to save it right. So I'm going to just come here and I'm going to save it as an Excel workbook so that all the data and how I start changing things, it's going to, when I open it back up, it's going to be like I left it. If I just save it as a CSV file, it's not going to come open like with all the raw data for me to be able to start and adjust things like I want. So this just gives you pretty much a raw spreadsheet of all the data that was pulled from the MLS. I'll come up to insert on the top left, and then I'll select pivot table. And it does all this for me. And I just simply, it's asking for the range. It's already selected. You can see where it's got these dotted lines that are kind of moving. It's selecting all the data on this spreadsheet. I don't need to do anything else. And it's saying new worksheet. Yep, I want it to create a new worksheet to be able to pull this data from. And then all I'm going to do is hit OK. And it's going to pull up. And you see at the bottom, when I click on custom export, there's my data. And I hit sheet 1, this is where my pivot table is. Now, this is where it kind of gets interesting as far as data layout, what you want to see, formatting, things like that. So you see on the right, this is a list of all my fields. This is all the fields that was exported and anything that I can add over here to get the data. So the first thing I want to see, let's say I want to go by city. If I just take city and I'll drag it to rows, it lists all the cities that are in my data report. Now I want it to count how many properties closed in each city. So what I'll do is I'll simply grab and take listing number and I'm going to drag it to value. Now, all it's doing here is it's adding all these up, right? So I need to simply change what it's doing to that data. So if you see this drop down beside value, it's going to say value field settings. If I click on that, I can hit count, average, max, min, whatever I want. All I want it to do is count this, right? I'll change the header of it to be just total sold. I can spell right. I'll hit OK and I hit count. Now it tells me how many homes sold in each one of these cities. Is that pretty easy? Everybody good? Any questions about anything to this point? Yeah. All right. So let's take and let's look at price, right? So I'm going to click on sold price. And when I click on it, it automatically adds it over here. If I just click the box, it's going to add it to my value section. So you can see it just has total, the sum again, right? I want average. So I'll do the drop down. I'll go to value field setting. I'll hit average. And then I'm going to put average sold price because that changes my header over here. And I want it to look as a dollar amount because if I just hit OK, it's just going to look like a number. It's not going to look like currency. So if I click number format and I'm going to hit currency, OK, and then OK again, and now it's giving me my average sold price for each of those towns. And overall for Onslow. So now I have total sold, average sold price. Pretty simple, right? Did everybody catch that? I see some confused faces, some people that are like still processing. So please ask. I'll go back and do it again.
Al, I might have missed something on this, but because I was responding to messages, but how do you get the pivot table? I know you're a little bit ahead of that, but how do you get it to do the pivot table where it's pulling from the export?
So when I'm here, I go to insert, pivot table, and then it's selecting all the data. And all I do is hit OK. And then it creates this other tab where that's now linked to that original data.
Okay. I missed part of that. That's what I didn't understand.
That's okay. And I can simply come up here and I can change that header to say city. So I have city, total sold, average sold price. So if I wanted to do columns across the top of here, I could take city and I can move it to this, and you can see it goes everything across. So if you see that, take that and move it over to row. It makes it a lot easier. If I were looking at like year over year stats, then I could manipulate that data to show each year for what it was each year by city. And that gets into a little bit more programming and things like that. But this gives me some basic stats. So let's look at days on the market, right? So if I go down and I'm looking for, where is it at? Go ahead. Click on days in the market. And again, it's doing some because I see there, it says some, which means I need to come over here to where it has values.
Is Bob going by?
I don't know. I don't know if Bob's going by or not. I don't know who that is. Let's mute. Let's mute. Cool. I hope Bob makes it by though. So let's go over to again, we're going to change some of days on the market. And I'm going to do a drop down and I'm going to hit value field settings again. And then I want to do average on this again, right? So I'll hit average and I can change it to where it's not such a long header. Just do average DOM. No, I want it to have a comma. Like, I don't like this number. I want it to see a comma. So I'll go number format again and I'll hit number. And then I'm going to click use comma separator right here. I don't want any decimal places, so I can take that off. So I can, I can change it to percentage or whatever I want by using this type of number, by classifying the type of number or categorizing the type of number it's gonna produce. But I just want it to be a basic number with comma and no decimals. I'll hit OK. I got my average. I'm good there. I'll hit OK. And now it pulls over my average. Obviously, I have nothing over 1,000. I can come back and edit this one to where it has total sold, value settings, number format. I'll go to number, use comma, hit OK, OK, and now I'll put my comma there. I know it's just little formatting stuff, but I kind of weird that way. I like it to be formatted. So I also have on here like concessions. Average concessions is another one. And then we'll get into like breaking these into showing how you can do like subdivisions in each one too. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go to, where is it at? Closing seller concessions amount. Click on that. And it has total. And I'll come again over to this arrow, drop down, value field setting. And then I'm going to do average. And I want it to be currency, right? Number format, currency. That's all I need. And I'm going to do average closing costs. Hit OK. And it tells me the average per city. So when I produce these stats to y'all at our office meetings, this is simply how I pull it, right? And I know I make it look easy because I've done it so many times. But it's really that simple. You export the data, and I'll go back to that. You come into the MLS, you do your search, filter out what you need, and again, make it from a high-level view, meaning I'm looking at all of Onslow County, and I want to look at everything that's closed. And then I'll come up and I'll do an export. And once it's exported into a CSV file, I'll open that up. And this gives me my raw data. And then from here, from the raw data, I go to pivot table, insert, pivot table, new worksheet, and then it produces this to where I can add the fields. Now, let's say I want to look at like subdivision in each one of these cities. I can hit subdivision and it automatically added it below my rows. And now I can look at each individual subdivision and the numbers for each one. By simply dragging over data. See how quick and easy that is? Could give me the looks like, oh, that's not that easy. That's just a lot of numbers. I don't like those numbers.
Hey, Al,
Cross-eyed. Yes.
it's Pam. Hi.
Hi.
I did pivot tables back in the dinosaur days. So I just
You're
there
welcome.
a way is there a way, it looks so much more sophisticated than when I use these, but is there a way to create templates down the road or make these automated? Because obviously this data is from this point in time at this minute, right?
There is.
All right, I don't want to get ahead of anything, but
No, but it's just a little more
curious.
technical. You basically have to set your source. Like here, I would come up to, and I would go, when I go to my pivot table analysis, change source data, I would have to change it to where it included this from the table range. It would point to a file that is a generic file name with all the fields in that file, and it would automatically open that file every time I open this file. So it's run off two separate files. So yes, there is a way to do that. And I've done that. I actually do that with a lot of other reports. It just gets to be complex, meaning, this has to, when I come here to go to select data, I'd have to go to my other spreadsheet and make sure that I have every row and every column selected so that anytime that I save that, so I would have like generic template, right? Could just be like generic data is what I would call it. And I'd have all the fields selected in that generic data. So that anytime I exported anything from the MLS, I would save it over that as generic data. That when this file opened up, it would go to that generic data field file and pull all the data over. Then it would read it from that. So yes, it can be done. It's just a little bit higher level than I wanted to get into today. I'm just trying to show basic understanding of how to pull data. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. No, that was great. I appreciate that. At least
Okay.
my AI bot will do it for me one day.
Yeah, and look, that's another way to do it. I'll show you a little bit of like the AI stuff too, because you can dump that into AI, and I'll take that same data and I'll drop it into AI, and you can ask questions, and it pulls the same stuff, it just formatted differently, right? So if I go to Holly Ridge, I can look at all the communities there. If I just want to see Holly Ridge summarized, I can click and it'll expand or collapse that whole city for me and all the data within that city. And if I right click on it, I can just go to expand, collapse entire field, and it just pulls everything back like it was. Is there any other data you'd like to see within this? Anybody? Nobody?
Can you do by agent?
Yes. If I did by like listing office,
Right. So like we could use it on our listing presentations and you can be like, Seacoast is listed 77 houses in Holly Ridge,
sure.
yada, yada. Like for newer agents that may not have the stats, that's where they could lean on the company stats to show how powerful Seacoast is
Yeah. I
if
mean,
they
like,
don't have their personal sales yet. Well,
if
I
this
can't
list,
see anything because I'm driving.
yeah, all I did was take over and drop in listing office, and then it just shows me how many each office did. And then if I click on like Seacoast Advantage Jacksonville, then it pulls all the cities, and then it pulls all the communities, all the subdivisions. And if I didn't want that to show up here anymore, I would just simply click on listing office, and that would take that off. And look, I could even move this around. I mean, there's a lot of things I can do if I change subdivision and moved it to city, which doesn't make sense. But if your data is coming up wrong, it's probably in a wrong field here somewhere. If that makes any sense at all. Everybody good on that? Questions?
The marketing team, they're always putting those bars together to show us where Caldwell stands against our competition. But I think they do it through Market Square or
They do. They do it from a different
yeah.
system. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are basic pivot tables, right? And how to use them. And I could take any data. I don't know why I want to do beds, baths, but the data that I put in here is what it's going to spit out. And if you don't like what it says, I mean, I could do heated square feet. If I click on heated square feet, it's going to give me the sum, right? Just pay attention to what the header says. And if you don't like the data, if you're like, look, there's no house that's 100, or not around here that is 140,000, 185 heated square feet. That is not right. Obviously, it's a sum. So if I go to value field setting, again, just do the drop down and I change what it's doing. And I could do max, and that's going to tell me the largest home that's in that area. Min's the smallest. I can do average heated square feet, and then it pulls it out. See, when I don't change the number, how it gives me all these decimal spaces. So I'll go back to that value field setting, number format. I'm going to make it a number, take out my decimals, do a comma separator, and then hit, and then do OK again. There's my average heated square feet. That's how you clean up the data. And I could even change the header here. I don't have to do it within there. But this gives me by city, and then it gives me my grand total. Now, those of you that are like to do things simply, right? Meaning just I don't want to have to worry about this programming and figuring this out. You could take that same file, do your same export, go to the MLS, do your same filter, your same search, export that data, and then drop it into ChatGPT and ask it to do whatever you want to. This wasn't meant to be a ChatGPT class, but I'll show you what that looks like real quick, just because, no offense, I just know how people like to do things the easier way and some people don't want to do numbers. So I'll pull this report and I am going to drop it in, and then I'm going to say, give me the average, give me the total homes sold by city, average sold price, average closing costs, and average days on the market from this data. It's going to read it and it's going to spit out. That's the data that I sent. It's analyzing, and then this is how quick it can work. Again, this wasn't meant to be a ChatGPT class, but I'm just trying to show you easier ways to pull data. So if you don't want to do a pivot table or Excel, if you just don't want to learn that skill, most people are using ChatGPT or some sort of AI, and this is just another way to get that data in front of you. So let's compare it side by side. It says Jacksonville, 616 homes sold. Let me increase this view. Close that. 616, right? Average price. Doesn't have it there. Average concessions. Is that right on the market? Yep. Average days on market, 63. Pretty interesting, isn't it? How it'll pull that data that fast. Again, I don't want to get into ChatGPT class. I just wanted to show you that there's another way to pull that information, because a lot of y'all, I know you're using some sort of AI. You jump it in and I can just keep asking questions about that same data, and it's going to pull out from that data anything that you need to know. Like, I don't know why I didn't do average price. Key takeaway is volume dominance. Give me average price by city. Average sold price by city. Then I want to rank them by the most expensive. Jacksonville, 287, 287. Again, not meant to be a ChatGPT class. Any questions about Excel and stats? I'll go back to the MLS and we'll look at some other stuff. But again, this is meant to be a basic understanding of how to at least pull data from the MLS and how to be able to manipulate, I hate to say manipulate, but extract the data and filter it to see it in an understandable way. You could easily take this, like Jenna said, to a listing appointment to show them data. If they were doing a certain community, I could filter out and just have that community. If I wanted to filter it by subdivision, I'd come over here, drop this down beside the field, and then just select the subdivision that I wanted to see. Maybe it's just Aberdeen Acres. And that's all it's going to show me is Jacksonville and Aberdeen acres. Go back and select all, and it's going to show it all again. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions on that?
I'm just saying, when I try to do this and my pivot table won't pivot, then I'm calling you out.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm fine with that. Look, I'll help any of you all with stats or data or information. I know a
I'm
lot.
just saying that whenever I need data, I just call Al. He is data.
Well, I usually put all these stats out in my weekly emails or in office meeting stuff. I know some of y'all like playing with the data on your own, so I wanted to at least have a some sort of a training session on how to use Excel, right? And because this data here, I could go and filter and manipulate it from here. It's just really, really hard. It's a lot harder than just simply doing insert pivot table and then come into your pivot table and editing it from here. If you start getting weird stuff like, if I did subdivision straight across by city, well, that's not very easy to see. I mean, you could do that, but it's just not easy to see, is it? It's a lot harder. So then I'm going to simply come over here and drop it back down, and it's going to, if you start messing with this and it gets to be all crazy, look at your fields assignments over here. Let's go back to the MLS since no one has questions on that. Pull that back up. Nope, that's chat. Let's take that down. And we'll come back into statistics. And I wanted to run another report. Anybody have any questions on the ranking report or your own agent statistics? Everybody good with that? So let's go back to terms of sale. And I'll hit run report. And it gives me these same reporting options. It looks like there's a lot. And sometimes this is lagging. And I'll show you what I mean. I want to only see Onslow. So I'm clicking on this field and it's taking a minute for it to catch up. Now it catches up. And I'll just type in Onslow. So I want all the terms of sale for Onslow. I don't really care about the association or anything like that. I don't want, I know it has member statistics. I don't know why it has member. I'm going to do MLS because I want all MLS. And I want this to begin from January 1, run through to today. Click next. And it looks like in Onslow County since the first of the year, which this is not right because it's only telling me we had 3 sales. That's how I can tell the data's not right. MLS. Onslow. I don't know why it's doing that. Let's go back to inventory production, terms of sale, report, all property types. Come on, waiting for it to catch up. County is going to be Onslow. I don't want member and I don't want office. From the first of the year. Yeah, I don't want office. I'm clicking, it's just not doing anything. It's catching up. Saw that the screen jumped, which means it updated. I'll click next. There we go. Now it runs right. So in Onslow County, we can see there's been 210 sales that were cash. 15.65% of all sales since the first of the year. Conventional loans, there were 211. It's 15% of the sales. VA loans, 777. It is 57% of the sales. Well, 58% of the sales in Onslow County. So it's cash, conventional, I'm sorry, it's VA, conventional, and cash are highest type terms or how people paid for the home. Just another way that you can run your report yourself. And I can narrow this down to subdivision. When I'm back in the filter section here and I put Onslow, I could come up to subdivision and put simple subdivision in and see what type of people are buying for that home, and it'll pull that up too. Make sense? Any stats reports anybody want to see?
Question, could you do by city in Onslow County? Because my speculation that North Topsail, Sneads Ferry would probably have a higher percentage of cash conventional, whereas Jacksonville, we are going to see a ton of VA.
I mean, I can do by zip code, city, however I want to. I mean, I can just simply go here to Onslow and type in Jacksonville. And I can do lands and Hubert and run that same report. MLS, same dates, hit next. Making sure I didn't select anything else. I know I'm buzzing through here, but yep, hit next. This is just Jacksonville when it's still at 65%, 614 of the sales, conventional and cash. It's still the same thing, Jenna.
Interesting.
Very interesting. And it tells me here, right here's my search parameters. So it tells me that I did County of Onslow, City of Hubert, Jacksonville, and Richlands. Not just Topsail. Good observation.
Well, I was going to say, if you took those three cities out and did Sneads Ferry, Holly Ridge, Surf City, North Topsail, I'd bet you'd see a change more towards cash, conventional, and 1031.
MLS, this isn't my computer. This is the MLS. Let's take those out and do. It's very.
You could just do 28460 and 28445. Less keystrokes.
Yeah, I know, but I already started.
Sorry. Well, I can't see what you're typing.
What was the other one? 28460. I know it was the one. 28455. No,
445. 445.
Yeah,
28445.
4555 is Maysville.
445 is Holly Ridge, Topsail, and Surf City.
Yeah, you're wrong. 28445 isn't coming up. We'll just do 28460. We'll do 28460 because I know that's Sneads Ferry and in that area. 40% is VA. 25% is conventional, 26% is cash, but there's still 40% VA loans in that area. Interesting. Any reports anybody'd like to see or talk about or know more about? Again, play with them. Come in here to statistics. That's my production is one you'll get to do your comparison. And then these other ones are great reports that you can run. Inventory and production is where we were just at, which has all the other reports in it that you can try and mess with. And again, ranking report, that's the one where most people go to see they call it the top down report, meaning from the top agents down to see where they rank in the MLS. You're not going to mess anything up by getting in here and playing with this and messing with it. So don't be afraid to try to mess around with that. Joe, you raise your hand.
Yeah, one Al, I got to tell you, thank you for doing this because us old guys had to learn this on the street.
Yeah, I know.
But the second thing is, I was asked this the other day and I was fiddling with it. Is there a way we could do this the same thing with like rentals, and things like that?
Rentals?
And the reason I'm asking this is I got a client who's thinking about putting their house on the rental market. And
Okay.
I wanted to show them the stats for, how things are running, the price ranges and things like that. And maybe I just got frustrated because I just couldn't quite get it to work the way it does with sales.
When you come to this filter, go to residential rental and
Yep,
only select that. Wait for it to catch up.
live.
Do what? And I'll do Onslow. I'll do all MLS and I'll do from January. Hit next. This tells me how many have sold first of the year, median list price, average list price, days on the market. This is just a summary statistics report, but you can run any of these reports simply by selecting the type at the top. In your filter section, right? Let me go back. If I do summary statistics, which is what I just ran, you can do saturation, any of these to pull that. You go to run report, and then here, property type, I just hit, make sure I only select rental, and then you do your same filter criteria. Does that help, Joe?
Yeah, it's funny how all the stats are there. We just have to figure out how to get them.
Yeah, you just gotta figure out how to extract that, and if you run into problems, let me know. For your case, as far as rentals, I can tell you the easiest way is come in here to quick search, and I'm going to go to uh, here to change search type. I'm going to go to residential long term. I'll just simply go to closed because there's some cool, easy reports in here. Change the lease date to 1/1/2026 to today. And then I'm going to go to simply Onslow County. And let's say I just wanted to look at townhomes. I'm going to go here and do townhouse and duplex because they categorize them as both. And then when I come over here, I'm going to hit stats. And this right button that says stats. And this is an easy way to see, this year, average square footage of 1,084 of the townhomes average list price or rent price is 1,256. And this is the average how long they've been on the market.
Gotcha.
That's an easy way to try to run some other report. It's just another way to get it. I take
Yeah.
this, I would do this for sales also. If I come over here and I'm going to go back to my residential basic search, and let's say I'm doing a CMA on a property in Onslow Bay, I'm going to go to subdivision and I'll type in Onslow Bay. And I'm looking at everything active, pending with showings and closed. And I'm going to do sold date again of the January 1 of 26 till today. And then I'm going to simply hit stats. And what stats is telling me, it's going to tell me here how many are active in Onslow Bay, how many are pending, how many closed so far. It's the first of the year. This is the average square footage in Onslow Bay. This is the average sold price in Onslow Bay. This is the average days on the market. And then we have our median, right? Y'all remember the difference between average and median? Average is dead set between two specific numbers. So if I had, say, three numbers between 1 and 10, and I had 3, 6, and 7, my average is probably going to be about 4.5, 5. It's going to be my average because it's right in the middle. If I'm looking at median and use the same numbers, 3, 6, 7, median's probably going to be about 5.5 or 6 because it leans more towards where most of the numbers are. So when I look at this and I see my average is 375, but my median is 359, right? This, if you just look at this, it's telling me that numbers are trending down. However, so is my square footage. So size of home is coming down, which means price is coming down. And if I look at price per square foot, right, I have to look at sold price per square foot. 164 is what it's telling me my average is, but my median is 166. So these numbers are deceiving. It looks like numbers may be trending down, but they're actually trending up when I look at my price per square foot. I know those of you who don't like numbers, I just got you glazed over and didn't like that, but it's just another way to look at data. And this is a cool report to take your sellers. So if they say, well, I want to price it higher, I understand that. I just want to show you what's going on in the community. This is our average square footage. That's the average price, and this is how long they're sitting on the market. Simple as that. And you want to price your 2,400 square foot home at 425? Okay. We're going to be on the market for a lot longer. This is a very powerful report. When you go to print, you just print here, and then it prints. It has other statistics here, like these are days on the market, homes that have sold within 30 days, 31 to 60 days, 61 to 90 days. This is the number of listings that sold within those timelines, percentage of total, meaning percentage of total homes sold. 42% of the total homes sold in under 30 days, and they sold for 99%, 0.45% from the sales price to what they listed for. Sales price to original list price, which means that they made a price change, right? That's just showing these two numbers aren't the same, which means there were price changes for homes that have sold. Those that, this is interesting to see. Our average days on market is 100 days, right? And our median is 57. Those homes that sat on the market for 61 to 90 days and did not have a price change sold for more. These numbers are the same. The two homes that sat on the market for over 60 days that sold then and didn't make a price change actually sold for more than those that sold within that time.
But were those new construction or were those resale?
Doesn't say that. I could filter that out and take out new construction to see that, but it's just, I mean, that's a good point, Jenna.
My speculation is they would be new construction if
Mine
they're
would be
getting
too.
full list after that long.
Well, and everything above that is that too.
Right.
This is where diving into the data even more helps understanding that. And how do you filter that out? I'm going to come over here and I'll go to year built and I'll hit max, let's say of 2024. Now I have true resale data. Yeah, two of the resales, because this is from the first of the year till today. Two of the resales that sold for more than they originally listed for, because they stayed on target from that 60 days. That's interesting. So what this tells me is making a price change doesn't always matter, right? It's the marketing that you're doing, and it's just waiting. When you have the conversation with your sellers and tell them, look, it's going to take us 53 days to sell. That's our average for our resales because we did 24 less. And so if they said, how long is it going to take to sell? I would say anywhere from, this says 37 and a half, 38 days to 60 days. I'm going to estimate high. And then we get to the 60-day mark. If we don't have a price, or if we don't have an offer, we may want to drop price. You're setting the tone from the beginning on expectations of showings and everything else. And this helps that because you're showing data. It's not just your opinion. Anyway, I can get into this, talk about stats all day. What kind of questions do y'all have? Anything?
Could you do the stats for lots in Pender County? Since you like stats so much.
So we're going to do land.
Yes, land.
So I'll come over here to land, and then I'll just go to county, Pender. But again, we're broad here, right? Because we're going to do closed.
How about we put Hampstead in there?
Well, you're also land is a whole different animal because remember it's location, location, location. So you're including home land that's in the community, land that's on the beach. It's very subjective. You're gonna have to be a lot more filtered with that. And the
We'll
bad
have
thing
to
is,
pivot. We'll have to pivot it out.
well, yeah, that's right. Pivot table it out. But here's where, as a listing agent, the more data you put in, the easier it is for folks to find things. So if you look, there's a lot of stuff that's close to the water, which is really going to skew numbers versus these over here. I could come and do a polygon and come over and select this and do an area to where it doesn't go to anything along the water and only select those.
Yeah, if we could do south of 17, you can just draw it out, right?
Oh, it matched over.
That's what happens to me when I try to do it. It looks like a pair of eyeglasses.
It keeps saying I'm overlapping and I'm not. There. So I try to keep everything off the water, 71 properties. But the bad thing with land is, it's not going to give me heated square footage. And I can't change this field to show acreage. So this is just telling me what the average sold price is, but it doesn't tell me, that's the minimum, that's the maximum. It doesn't tell me how large the lots are. And so this data is really not relevant when it comes to land. It's hard to understand that. That would be best put into a pivot table and trying to reduce or filter out the size. And I could come over here and do a filter on acreage total and do a max of 0.5. That'll help delineate it a little bit better. But then we get into communities, because some community lots are going to be a lot more expensive than they are in outside of communities. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that doesn't,
Okay.
to me, that wouldn't help me determine whether a land is priced right or not. I know we got to do CMAs on land, but when you're doing CMAs on land, you're going to need to look at where's that lot located. Is it in the community? Is it not? Is it along a corridor or not? There's a lot of factors when it comes into land. You can definitely ask Christina Asbury. She'll make sure that you understand all that. She's very, very fluent with land.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Anyway,
Thank you, Al.
you're welcome.
Appreciate that.
I don't know if it helped any, but at least it helped maybe somebody understand that, that's not a one all be all for pulling numbers and data on depending on the type of property. Any questions for me or about today? Let me see. Look
The
at
chat was
real
just about
quick.
my allergies, guys. Al,
Okay.
so don't have to worry about that.
Okay. Yeah. Warm honey helps, or local honey helps. Any honey helps.
Joe said you got to add a good amount of bourbon measured from your heart with
Yeah, I was
that.
going to say that too. We need to add
Isn't that the way you should measure it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
This is why we're
folks.
friends, Jamie.
I didn't really get too deep in the Excel because I don't want to. We did a little bit as far as pulling data from other sheets and things like that. But I wanted at least to have a basic understanding of how to pull some stats and how to pull stats from the MLS and then be able to filter that on your own, pulling data that the MLS really doesn't going to pull for you. So I hope it helped. Anybody have anything to add or any questions?
I appreciate this, Al, because I didn't know anything about a pivot table. I've never pivoted before on a table. So, well, not on a table. But no, seriously though, like I didn't know you could even do that in Excel. I know there's a lot of different things you can do. So I definitely learned something new today and I appreciate that.
Cool.
Same. I had zero idea how to build a pivot table, so I'm excited to try this out. Thank you.
Yeah, just simply do a search in the MLS with some basic data, looking like a whole county, and then you can easily filter that out within that. The more if you're going to pull it out and put it into Excel, the more data you pull, you can easily filter it out in Excel. So don't try to filter all that out in the MLS. Get it into Excel and then filter it from there. If you need to start doing things by like month and year, that takes a little bit of programming where you have to add in cells and do a little programming with it. It's not hard. If you need that help, I can help you. Just reach out to me and I'll show you how to do it. All right, Joe, that's all I have for today. Hope it makes sense. Hope it helped.